Husband abandons his blind wife in an abandoned church. Months later, he sees her on the news. Claire was at the peak of her life, with a promising career, loyal friends, and a long-term relationship with Jonathan. But everything changed drastically when an unexpected event left her blind, forcing her to confront her deepest fears and reevaluate her choices. Amidst bonds of love and friendship, she discovered who truly stood by her. But when she found herself alone in an abandoned church, something surprising happened. Claire was experiencing a phase of great prosperity in her life. Everything she planned at work was on the right track, her body remained healthy, and to top it off, she was with Jonathan, her longtime boyfriend who, until that moment, seemed to support her in every decision. Being an independent spirit, Claire made the most of every opportunity. She went out for romantic dinners, organized gatherings with friends, and invested time and energy in her career. However, as her 30th birthday approached, her family exerted increasing pressure for her to reconsider her priorities. Claire's mother was the most emphatic. "My daughter, you've been dating for 10 years. Don't you think it's past time to make the relationship official and think about children? And who will take care of you in the future?" These questions, though born of maternal affection, left Claire feeling suffocated. She respected her mother but had doubts about following that path, at least at that moment. Jonathan, who had always been easygoing, showed no urgency to move to the next step. He liked to say that their relationship was fine as it was, with no need for labels or legal commitments. At first, Claire agreed. However, as time passed, the family pressure planted doubts in her mind. Did not formalizing their love signify insecurity, or was she, deep down, afraid that nothing would work out? Her best friend, Amanda, was her safe harbor for venting. In a recent conversation, Claire had revealed the discomfort she felt with the constant demands. However, unlike other times, Amanda suggested that perhaps Jonathan didn't love her enough to ask for her hand. This was like a bombshell, as it cast doubt on a 10-year relationship. Claire, Jonathan, and Amanda had been friends for a long time. Back when they were students, there was a fourth member in their group, Richard, who had become quite close to them. However, Richard had disappeared a few years later, focusing on his career and studies. Amanda had even dated him, but the end of their relationship coincided with his distancing. On the other hand, Claire and Jonathan remained united, and their relationship naturally flowed without major conflicts. Now, however, Amanda was hinting that Jonathan wasn't good enough. The unease generated by Amanda's insinuations made Claire rethink. Was it time to advance the relationship and discover the truth about Jonathan? She concluded it was. Noticing that her boyfriend never took the initiative to propose, she decided to surprise him and ask him to marry her. So she planned a romantic dinner in her own apartment, bought flowers, lit candles, and selected his favorite music. When Jonathan arrived from work, he found the table set for two, with the atmosphere of a romantic movie. He praised the scene, sitting down without imagining what was to come. Shortly after they poured the wine, Claire, her heart beating fast, took a small case from her pocket and opened it, revealing 2 gold rings. She took a deep breath, determined. "Jonathan, we've been together for so long. I love you, and I believe we can build something even stronger. Will you marry me?" She struggled to keep her voice steady, though she was anxious. "Wow, Claire. I don't even know what to say. Oh my God. Of course, I accept." He brought his hand to his mouth, surprised, but with a smile that lit up his face. "I never expected you to propose to me, but this is the best surprise I've ever had." The two embraced, emotional. After composing themselves, they toasted with wine and discussed how they would tell everyone the news. The next morning, Claire called her mother, who couldn't contain her euphoria. Among friends, the news also spread quickly, and congratulatory messages poured in from all sides. However, Amanda seemed hesitant in her reaction. Approaching Claire, she confided, "Claire, I'm just afraid you'll suffer. If he were really the perfect guy, he would have taken this initiative already." She sounded almost guilty saying it, but Claire chose not to dwell on the matter. She felt happy and didn't want to be contaminated by external fears. The wedding preparations proceeded without major setbacks. Claire chose a traditional white dress with a veil and delicate flowers that matched her personality. Jonathan, in turn, opted for a simple but elegant dark suit. The ceremony would take place in a nearby church, and the decoration was planned to create a cozy and romantic atmosphere. On the big day, when Claire walked down the aisle, those present sighed, enchanted by her beauty. Jonathan's smile, standing at the altar, showed pride and joy. They exchanged vows in an emotional atmosphere, with some restrained tears and broad smiles. After they both said, "I do," came the kiss that sealed their commitment. The party then began, bringing together family and friends. The music played lively, and the hall was full. At one point, while walking among the guests, Claire noticed Amanda talking to a man she didn't immediately recognize. The conversation seemed heated, and the man left hastily. Intrigued, Claire planned to approach Amanda to ask, but suddenly she was surrounded by people wanting to congratulate her. After a while, Claire noticed Jonathan's absence and looked for him everywhere. Nearing the restroom, she heard a whisper and, upon entering, saw him leaning against the sink, breathing deeply. He seemed to have been caught off guard by her arrival. "I'm sorry, I just needed a minute. So many people, so much emotion," he smiled sheepishly, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Don't do that to me, I was worried. Come on, let's go back to the party." She took his hand, and they returned to the hall, where they enjoyed the rest of the night. When morning came, they left for their honeymoon in a nearby city famous for its tranquility and beautiful landscapes. The hotel was simple yet cozy, with comfortable rooms and a retreat-like atmosphere perfect for relaxing days. Claire wanted to make the most of these special days with her husband. One afternoon, she decided to invite Amanda to visit them. She thought it would be a good opportunity to spend some quality time together, as there were interesting tourist attractions in the region. Claire trusted her friend, despite the suspicions Amanda had shown about Jonathan. "Amanda, what do you think about coming to spend a day here? There's a beautiful waterfall, trails, and the hotel is very peaceful. We can go sightseeing, catch up," she said enthusiastically over the phone, sitting on the hotel bed while Jonathan rested. "Sure, that sounds great. Send me the location, and I'll find a free day to come over." Amanda seemed willing to accept the invitation, and Claire was pleased. Her idea was to walk around the region, see the trails, and visit tourist spots. Jonathan just watched, without showing much excitement, but without opposing it. Even before Amanda arrived, Claire wanted to stock the small mini fridge in the room with fruits and other treats. So, she went to the local supermarket. While selecting fruits, she glanced around and saw someone familiar. Richard, the old friend who had disappeared years ago. It was a shock to see him there, as she didn't know what path his life had taken. He looked more mature, had a confident posture, but showed some reservation upon recognizing her. "Claire. Long time no see," he said with a half smile. The conversation was brief. Richard claimed to be in a hurry but hesitantly mentioned he had been to the wedding, leaving before greeting the couple because he felt uncomfortable. It seemed something was bothering him, but he didn't go into detail. "I hope everything's okay with you. Sorry to rush off, but I need to take care of some things." He pointed to his watch, and she realized he was indeed pressed for time. Not wanting to force the situation, Claire said goodbye and went on her way, though intrigued. After all, Richard and Amanda had dated in the past, and she had seen him arguing with Amanda at the party, albeit from a distance. Had they gotten back together? She wondered, but kept her hypotheses to herself. Later, she returned to the hotel with her shopping bags. Jonathan was waiting in the room, flipping through TV channels. He looked up when Claire entered and asked how her outing had been. "I ran into Richard. Can you believe it? He was at the supermarket. Said he came to our wedding but left early. Funny, huh?" Claire placed the bags on the small table, trying to seem casual. "Really? Haven't seen that guy in ages. Didn't he disappear?" Jonathan replied, frowning. "He did. Seems he's reappeared now. Didn't get to talk much. Well, I'll put these things away. and then we can take a walk." She tried to sound cheerful. Jonathan agreed with a distracted nod and went back to watching TV. After putting away the fruit, Claire noticed her husband remained distant, as if something was bothering him. She chose not to insist. Perhaps it was just a momentary worry. The next morning, Amanda called, saying she would arrive around noon. Claire woke up early, excited to receive her. She decided to prepare a fancy snack with bread and fruit. Jonathan got up later and sat at the table where Claire was finishing arranging everything. "You never stop, huh? Want me to help you with anything?" he asked, somewhat sleepy. "Sit down and rest. Everything's under control," she smiled, offering him a cup of coffee. Shortly before the scheduled time, Amanda's taxi pulled into the hotel parking lot. She got out, carrying a bag, looking around curiously. Claire ran to greet her at the door. "The place is really beautiful. It seems even calmer than I imagined," Amanda commented, running a hand through her hair. "I knew you'd like it. Come, I'll show you the guest room where you can leave your bag," Claire replied, leading her inside. As they walked, Amanda glanced with a little smile at Jonathan, who was standing a bit apart, and greeted him quickly. He responded with a wave of his hand, without much enthusiasm. A few seconds later, the two friends reached the room. Amanda dropped her bag on the bed, not failing to notice the details of the place. The large window, the light curtains, and the cozy simplicity. "So, how's the honeymoon going? Is Jonathan behaving himself?" she asked in a tone that mixed playfulness and concern. "Everything's fine. He's been a bit distracted, but I think it's just tiredness or some work problem he didn't want to tell me about. I'm trying to trust, you know." Claire's smile was weaker than she intended. Amanda noticed but didn't press. Instead, she offered to accompany Claire in whatever activity they had planned for that afternoon. A little later, Jonathan joined them in the hallway. They decided to explore a light trail that passed by a small stream. The sun was mild, and the fresh breeze made the weather pleasant. During the walk, Amanda and Jonathan walked side by side, while Claire followed a little ahead, marveling at the vegetation. At times, Claire would turn and notice Amanda whispering something in Jonathan's ear, but she chose not to worry. Perhaps they were just commenting on the scenery. After about 40 minutes, the trio reached the stream, a place with rounded stones and crystal clear water. Claire took off her shoes to feel the cold water. Amanda did the same, letting out a playful laugh. Jonathan, further away, sat on a rock and took out his phone, seeming distracted. "Jonathan, put down the phone and come feel the water," she laughed, waving at him. "I'm just checking some work messages, but I'll be right there." He put the phone in his pocket. "Relax. We're on vacation. This is supposed to be our moment," she sighed, closing her eyes to enjoy the sound of the stream. Upon returning to the hotel, the atmosphere seemed light. They went to a small nearby restaurant to try local specialties. They talked about old times, laughed at school day stories, and for a brief moment, everything seemed perfect. Still, Claire occasionally noticed exchanged glances between Amanda and Jonathan. It wasn't overt, but enough to spark a slight unease. Nevertheless, she preferred to maintain her trust in both, believing they were just exaggerated impressions. After lunch, they decided to rest. Amanda wanted to explore the hotel pool, while Claire went up to the room to nap. Jonathan went to get some air in the garden, according to him, to think about some pending work matters. Claire lay down for almost an hour, then got up and decided to go downstairs. She found Jonathan in the lobby, alone. He was looking down, and when he saw her, he looked up. "I was just sorting some things out in my mind. Did you sleep well?" He tried to smile but seemed tense. "Yes, I did. Where's Amanda?" she asked, looking around. "I thought she was at the pool. I haven't seen her since lunch," he shrugged. So, Claire walked to the outdoor area, where she didn't find her friend. She asked the receptionist, who said he had seen Amanda leave on foot, looking like she was going for a quick walk, but he didn't know where. Sometime later, Amanda returned, saying she had taken a walk around the area to get to know the region better. She brought some leaves and seeds collected along the way, displaying them as small souvenirs of her outing. Then, the three decided to spend the rest of the afternoon at the hotel, talking and making plans for the next day. By evening, Jonathan was exhausted and went to bed early. Claire stayed up late talking with Amanda, reminiscing about old stories, like when they met Richard years ago. Amanda became quieter when the subject came up but didn't elaborate. "I'd rather not talk much about Richard. He had his reasons for distancing himself, and it's not worth bringing it up again," she murmured without providing details. Claire respected her and didn't insist further. It was already early morning when they said goodbye, each going to their room. Claire lay beside Jonathan and stared at the ceiling, listening to the distant sound of crickets. Amidst the silence, she allowed herself to reflect on Amanda, on the unexpected reunion with Richard, and the few clues he had given her. She felt there were more secrets there than she wanted to admit. Her heart was restless, but she forced herself to think positively, mentally repeating that everything would be fine. The next morning, the trio woke up ready for another sightseeing tour. After a breakfast prepared by Claire with the fruits she had bought at the supermarket, they decided to take a small local bus that went to an observation point atop a mountain. The view was breathtaking, with green valleys and nearby clouds. They took photos, laughed together, and for a few moments, it seemed nothing could go wrong in Claire's life. She hugged Jonathan, who returned the gesture with a restrained smile. The tour guide told stories about the region, its waterfalls, and ancient legends, entertaining the visitors. Amanda asked questions, curious, while Jonathan remained distracted. After the tour, they returned to the hotel, tired but satisfied. Claire then suggested to Amanda that she extend her trip a bit longer so they could have more time to explore the beauties of the place. "Amanda, stay one more day. We can visit the larger waterfall that's a few miles from here. You can't leave before seeing that," she said, her eyes shining with excitement. "I'll try. Maybe I can reschedule some commitments and stay a bit longer," Amanda replied, though she didn't seem entirely convinced. Nevertheless, Claire was content with that possibility. As the hours passed, Claire felt a slight tension in the air but chose to ignore it, remaining optimistic. She knew Amanda had her own issues, and Jonathan, for some reason, also carried a restlessness. However, Claire still believed that just a little more time together would clarify everything. She felt herself in a bubble of hope, convinced that the love that had united her with Jonathan for so many years would be stronger than any eventual obstacle. So the day passed lightly, and late afternoon arrived. Claire, exhausted, was already thinking about resting but not before organizing what she would do the next day with Amanda. She wanted to plan the route to the larger waterfall, check the weather conditions, and decide whether to rent a car or call a taxi. Jonathan, quieter, merely agreed with whatever decision the two friends made. Claire ended up opting to wrap up activities early to save energy. She said goodbye to Amanda in the hallway, giving her a hug. For a moment, Amanda squeezed her hand with a strange intensity, almost as if she wanted to say something but didn't. Then she retreated to her room. When Claire entered her room, Jonathan was already in bed but awake. She sat beside him, asking softly, "Are you happy, John? I really want this honeymoon to be perfect for us. Is something bothering you?" She looked deep into his eyes, searching for sincerity. "I'm happy, yes. I just need a little more time to get my head straight." He reached out, caressing her face, and pulled her close. Claire decided not to insist. She snuggled beside him, closing her eyes, hoping the clouds of doubt would dissipate with the next day's light. Meanwhile, in the dimness of that room, she had no idea of the events that would soon unfold and how that longed-for trip held surprises that would radically change the course of her life. For now, she just wished to rest and replenish her strength to enjoy every moment of that place, unsuspecting that the true plot of her honeymoon was just beginning. At the hotel, while they were resting, Claire decided she would prepare a special breakfast and went out to buy fruit at the small market in the neighboring town. She wanted to set a table full of colors and flavors, believing it might improve her mood and bring some relief after so many recent emotions. She walked through the brightly lit aisles, carefully selecting strawberries, apples, pears, and some oranges. Turning the corner, she almost bumped into a very familiar face. Richard, the old friend who had disappeared years ago. He was holding a package of cookies and wearing casual clothes. But even so, he looked much more mature and undoubtedly more attractive than when they used to hang out. He gave her a surprised look, seemingly uncomfortable seeing her in that unexpected place. Claire, on the other hand, felt her heart tighten, unsure how to start a conversation after so long. Still, she managed to smile and approach. "Richard? I can't believe it. It's been so long." She forced a light laugh, trying to convey some naturalness. She dropped the fruit into her cart and waited for his reaction. "Claire, what a surprise. I didn't expect to see you here," he replied, looking away for an instant as if fighting the urge to end the encounter quickly. Claire sensed his hesitation but persisted. It was impossible to ignore the memories flooding back upon seeing him. "I was surprised too. You disappeared so suddenly, Richard. I missed hearing from you. Why didn't you stay at the wedding party?" "I didn't even see you that day," she asked, recalling the turbulent day. Richard bit his lip, looking embarrassed. He ran a hand through his hair and took a deep breath before answering. "I did go, but I left early. Things were strange, you know? Amanda and I were having some problems. The truth is, we were dating secretly, and on the wedding day, I ended up seeing something I couldn't bear." He kept his expression closed and avoided looking directly at Claire. "Problems? I didn't even know you two were still seeing each other. Amanda never mentioned anything. What happened?" She furrowed her brows, trying to imagine what could have been the reason for his discomfort. Richard took another breath, seeming to weigh each word. "I caught Amanda and Jonathan kissing in the party's restroom. It destroyed me, Claire. So I ended everything right there and left. I didn't want to be around," he murmured, shaking his head. Claire felt her body go cold. Jonathan was her new husband, the man she had trusted completely, and Amanda, her best friend since forever. Pain and indignation overcame her, but she tried to control herself so the conversation wouldn't explode in the middle of the market. "Are you sure about what you saw? Couldn't it have been a mistake?" she questioned, her hands gripping the cart tightly. "Unfortunately, I'm absolutely sure. Don't worry, it's not something I'd make up. I thought you knew or had found out after the wedding." He took a step back as if wanting to end the topic. She swallowed hard, a wave of nausea rising in her throat. She needed to confirm if this was true or some misunderstanding. After all, she suspected Amanda harbored some secret interest in Jonathan, but she never imagined they could go that far. "No, I didn't know. Thank you for telling me, really," she said, unable to look Richard in the eyes. He picked up his package of cookies, gave a brief nod, and said goodbye. "I have to go. Good luck, Claire. I hope things work out." Richard walked away, leaving her standing in front of the fruit, her mind in turmoil. After a minute, motionless, she refocused and quickly finished her shopping, determined to clarify this whole story. When she arrived at the hotel, she sent a message to Jonathan, claiming she would be late because of a clothing fair. That way, if it was all a fabrication, nothing would happen. However, if it were true, she would catch them in the room. She felt her heart race with every second, but hatred, sadness, and fear drove her to uncover the truth. Upon entering the hotel room, the worst possible scenario was confirmed. Jonathan and Amanda were lying in bed, kissing, lost in each other. She could hardly believe what she was seeing. She dropped the fruit bags on the floor, making a noise. They separated with a start, guilty looks on their faces. How could you do this to me?" Her voice came out trembling, almost breathless. "Claire, it's not what you're thinking. Please, let me explain." He got up, looking desperate, but couldn't string together coherent words. "Claire, please, forgive me. It all happened so fast. I don't know what to say." Amanda also tried to get up, but Claire took 2 steps back, tears filling her eyes. "Don't come near me. You both stabbed me in the back," she screamed, her voice failing due to the sobs choking her throat. Her soul shattered, Claire turned her back and ran out, their attempted apologies muffled by the rapid beating of her heart. She got in the car and sped off, with no specific destination. Tears blurred her vision, and despair grew with every mile. She didn't even notice when she exceeded the highway speed limit until she lost control on a curve, plummeting down an embankment. The car rolled over several times while Claire felt everything spin in a whirlwind of fear and pain. Minutes or hours later, she couldn't tell, paramedics found her unconscious. She was rushed to the hospital, subjected to exams and emergency procedures. She remained under observation until she regained consciousness. When she opened her eyes, everything was dark. She felt trapped in an almost claustrophobic void. She heard voices but saw nothing. She panicked, believing the lights were off. "Please, someone turn on the lights. I can't see anything," she whispered, unable to hide the desperate tone. A nurse approached and touched her arm. The nurse spoke softly to calm her, explaining that the room lights were on. Claire felt a shiver run down her spine, understanding that something very serious had happened. The doctor appeared shortly after, confirming that the trauma from the accident had severely affected her vision. Recovery would be almost a miracle. Jonathan appeared by her bedside but could barely look at her. She remained hospitalized for days, fighting against the darkness, trying to adapt to the circumstances. He, in silence, seemed burdened with guilt but didn't speak about the betrayal or her suffering. Finally, Claire was discharged. They returned home together, although she wasn't sure if their cohabitation still made sense. Adapting to a world without sight was one of the biggest challenges she had ever faced. She needed to relearn how to move and trust her other senses. Jonathan was absent most of the time, leaving without notice. She didn't have the courage to confront him openly about what had happened, as she felt fragile and unsupported. Amanda had disappeared. However, Claire felt deep down that the two were still in contact. One afternoon, Jonathan asked her to get in the car. He gave no details, just drove for almost an hour in silence. Claire, restless, tried to guess where they were going. He parked in an unfamiliar place, identifiable by the rustling of trees and the absence of city noises. "Please, get out here and sit on that bench for a bit. I'll take care of something quickly." He opened the door, led her to the wooden seat, and walked away. "John, what's happening? Why are we here?" she asked, wringing her hands, overcome with fear. She received no answer. The only thing she heard was the sound of the car driving away until it completely vanished. Time passed, but Jonathan didn't return. A cold wind announced the rain, which began to fall minutes later, wetting her hair, soaking her clothes and her hopes. Claire cried, not knowing what to do in that unknown place, unable to see a path. More minutes, perhaps hours, passed, and she couldn't tell how long she had been in the rain, given over to helplessness. It was then that a peaceful voice resonated near her, the voice of an elderly man, laden with compassion. He asked what she was doing there alone in that storm. Claire sobbed, trying to answer comprehensibly, but her voice came out broken. I don't know where I am. My husband left me here." She cried quietly, unsure if she could trust this stranger. The voice introduced himself as a priest who cared for that small church on the roadside. He carefully reassured her and led her inside, where the noise of the rain diminished, replaced by the tranquility of the stone walls. He offered her a towel and something warm to drink. She tried to control the shivering from the cold and tension. Gradually feeling a bit safer, Claire recounted everything that had happened. The wedding, the betrayal, the accident, the blindness, and finally, the abandonment she had suffered on that bench. The priest listened attentively, without interrupting, his murmurs of understanding alleviating some of the weight she carried. He took her to a small room in the back, where there was a simple bed and clean blankets. She lay down, exhausted by the events. The last image in her mind before falling asleep was Jonathan and Amanda's faces together in the hotel room, and the terror that had consumed her at the moment of the accident. She needed to sleep to recover. Her body and mind could no longer bear so much pain. When she woke up, Hours or perhaps a whole day later, she noticed she was calmer. She felt her surroundings, a small table, a glass of water. There was no one there at the moment, but she imagined the priest was nearby. She felt grateful for finding shelter, although sadness dominated her, as Jonathan had not returned for her. Her heart ached, and memories weighed on her shoulders. She prayed in her thoughts, without saying anything aloud, seeking strength to face the darkness and loneliness. With some effort, she got up and walked slowly, feeling the walls until she reached an open door. She recognized the sound of soft footsteps and the priest's voice talking to someone. However, before she could join the conversation, the man approached and spoke gently. He asked how she felt, offering help again. Claire thanked him, saying she was a little better, just very confused. She needed to know if Jonathan would return or if there was any possibility of contact. Maybe he would regret it and come looking for her. However, deep down, something told her that wouldn't happen. The priest explained that she could stay there as long as she wanted. That modest church always sheltered travelers in difficulty. A whole day passed. Claire hoped every time she heard a car outside that it would be Jonathan, but he didn't appear. The priest served her simple meals, and she did her best to help him, tidying her room and talking about pleasant subjects, although sadness still inhabited every fiber of her being. Night fell again, and Jonathan remained absent. Claire cried in silence, recalling every detail of the love she had for him, trying to understand how everything had crumbled so cruelly. Although she knew about the betrayal, a part of her still clung to past memories when he seemed to be the ideal man who would never leave her. Yet, there she was, alone, unable to see, sheltered by a kind priest who had offered her a room. The rain had passed, leaving the air damp and cold. Mental exhaustion overcame her so much that for the second consecutive night, she slept deeply. The next morning, the sun streamed through a crack in the window, bringing a sense of lightness to the room. Even though Claire couldn't see it, she heard the birds and felt the faint warmth cross the crack, warming her face. Still, her soul remained heavy. She hoped to hear familiar footsteps, Jonathan's voice, but none of that happened. A day passed, and Jonathan did not return. On the second day, Claire's cell phone rang. She was sitting on a simple bench in the churchyard, still getting used to the absence of light in her eyes and the fact that she had been abandoned by Jonathan. Hearing the ring, she took a deep breath and answered, somewhat tremulously, unsure who might be on the other end. It was then she recognized the voice of Richard, the old friend who had been gone for so long. He spoke hurriedly, worried, saying he would find out any useful information about Jonathan's betrayal with Amanda. Furthermore, he wanted to know how Claire was, as he had heard she had lost her sight and been left stranded. Richard, I don't even know where to begin. My world has completely collapsed. She pressed the phone against her face, feeling tears well up, even though she had already cried more than she could imagine. Claire, tell me what's happening. I heard you were abandoned by Jonathan and that you can't see. Where are you now? He spoke in a firm tone, yet full of apprehension. I'm in a church. A priest took me in after Jonathan left me on a bench and didn't come back. I don't know if I can stay here forever, but I have no options, she sighed, recalling the last few hours. Richard, upon hearing the account, readily offered to help her without hesitation. He got the address from the priest over the phone and drove as fast as he could to that quiet place. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Jonathan and Amanda had moved into a small apartment, facing serious financial problems. Even living together, they didn't enjoy the peace they had imagined before everything came to light. Jonathan's job loss had worsened the crisis, and Amanda, who couldn't find new work, felt even more worried. Jonathan, we can't go on like this. We're out of money, no prospects. If only we could get something back from your religious wedding, she commented, sitting on a mattress thrown on the floor, flipping through job classifieds. There's nothing to get back, Amanda. That wedding wasn't even legally official, and the house I thought of claiming was in Claire's mother's name. I got nothing after I abandoned everything, he seethed, frustrated, wiping sweat from his forehead. They exchanged insults and veiled recriminations, yet neither took the initiative to break up definitively. Necessity kept them together, even though cohabitation was difficult. Jonathan even called Claire a few times, repentant and missing the security he had with her. However, she never answered. One day, Amanda noticed when the phone rang incessantly. "Are you calling Claire again? Do you really think she'll answer after everything you did?" She crossed her arms, staring at Jonathan with disdain. "I just wanted to know if she's okay," he hung up, dejected. Meanwhile, Claire was living another reality. Upon discovering she was taking refuge in the church, Richard immediately went there. When he arrived, he contacted the priest, who took him to the room where Claire was resting. She heard firm footsteps approaching and recognized the familiar scent of cologne that brought back memories of happier days. "Claire, it's me. I got here as fast as I could. Are you better?" The priest explained some things to me. He gently touched her hand, conveying security. "Thank you for coming, Richard. I don't know what to do. I can't see, and I have nowhere to go. Staying at Jonathan's house makes no sense at all." "Everything collapsed," she said in a low voice, choking back a sob. Richard settled down, sitting beside her. He said he knew a place where she could stay, his mother's house, a kind lady with space to accommodate someone recovering. Claire hesitated but eventually accepted. The priest agreed, assuring her she would have good support there. And so, at the end of the day, Richard took her with him, helping her into the car, guiding her steps carefully. The first few days at Richard's mother's house were filled with adaptation. Claire, unable to see, needed to rediscover ways to do everyday activities. Holding a glass, walking without bumping into furniture, using the stairs, everything required patience and help. Richard and his mother took turns helping her with every detail. Moreover, they convinced her to consult a specialist in hopes of reversing her blindness. "Claire, do you have any definitive medical evaluation yet? Maybe there's a chance to regain your vision, even if partially," he said, feeling some hope. "The doctors said it's almost impossible. They spoke of a miracle, but I don't know if I believe in that. Anyway, I'll try everything within my reach." She gave a slight smile, though her voice carried sadness. While Claire sought to overcome her difficulties, Richard divided his time between caring for her and his professional life. His father, who ran a large company, was close to retirement and had already indicated he would leave the directorship to his son. The responsibility weighed on him, but Richard faced it firmly. He remembered how much he had studied, how much he had worked to achieve a prominent position. At this stage, however, seeing Claire so fragile awakened confused feelings in him. A mixture of friendship, deep affection, and something he hadn't fully recognized until then. One day, Claire was sitting in the garden, feeling the afternoon breeze. She heard the leaves of the trees rustling and breathed in the aroma of flowers. Suddenly, she sensed footsteps approaching. "Richard, is that you?" she called, extending her hand in the direction of the steps. "Yes, it's me. I thought you might like some tea, and I also wanted to talk. How are you feeling today?" he said, carefully handing the tea to her. "I'm okay, as much as possible. I've been thinking a lot about recent events, but I'm trying to stay strong. Thank you for the tea." She took a small sip, feeling the comforting warmth. Days turned into weeks, and Richard's affection for Claire grew gradually. Between nightly conversations and shared routines, a new complicity emerged. In parallel, his mother watched everything with tenderness, realizing that this feeling was evolving into something more than friendship. However, Claire still harbored fears. She thought of Jonathan and the devastating betrayal, fearing getting involved again without being sure of her own feelings. On the other side of the city, Jonathan and Amanda tortured each other with constant disagreements. The idea of having a child came to Amanda's mind, believing it was a way to tie Jonathan to her for good. But his reaction was one of contempt. "I never took you seriously. Do you really think I want to start a family with you? It was all just fun," he confessed impatiently, fumbling in his pockets for some change. "How absurd. I gave up everything to be with you, and now this is what I hear," she raged, feeling the ground open up beneath her feet. As much as they fought, neither had the courage to leave. Jonathan was unemployed and had nowhere to go. Amanda, in an equally complicated situation, remained at the same address out of sheer necessity. Humiliation and anger hung in the air as they argued. The television, on in the corner of the room, was showing ordinary news until, suddenly, an impactful headline appeared. The retirement of the owner of an important company, who would pass the management to his son. The image of the new director filled the screen. Jonathan, curious, looked up and was speechless upon recognizing Richard, that old friend from their group. And beside him, Claire. The report spoke of her story of overcoming adversity, as she had regained her sight after much effort in treatments and rehabilitation. At that moment, the segment showed scenes from the wedding. Claire was stunning in a simple yet elegant dress, walking and smiling, receiving flower petals thrown by the guests. Jonathan and Amanda looked at each other with expressions of pure astonishment, unable to believe that in such a short time, everything had changed so radically. She married Richard? And she can see again. Amanda stammered, feeling a mixture of envy and disbelief. This can't be real. I thought she would never regain her vision. And now there she is, all happy. He let the remote control fall to the floor, completely stunned. The report continued, commenting on Claire's rebirth and the love story that had blossomed despite the adversities they both faced. There were images of Richard helping his bride at the ceremony and photos from earlier moments, possibly taken during engagement shoots or a recent engagement. Then, a closer shot showed Claire smiling towards the camera, as if she could feel the presence of everyone watching her. The reporter added that it was an intimate celebration with few guests, marked by a romantic and hopeful atmosphere. I am so grateful for everything. This wedding symbolizes a new beginning. It's incredible how we can overcome the greatest difficulties when we have love and support, she had declared in the video, with an unmistakable sparkle in her renewed eyes. Amanda and Jonathan watched this statement, unable to react. The final shot showed Claire's face in close-up, radiant, beside Richard, who kissed her gently on the forehead. Seconds later, the segment ended, focusing on data about Richard's company's new direction and the progress expected under his leadership. Then the screen returned to the news anchor. She managed to turn things around. And here we are with nothing. Amanda uttered these words almost inaudibly, feeling the bitter taste of reality. I never imagined she would recover so impressively. I thought she'd be devastated, but this image proves the contrary. He held his head in his hands, immersed in a regret that grew with each second. Claire's happiness on television seemed like a slap in the face to both of them. Her smile, so full and confident, made her turnaround evident. If before she had been subjugated by the darkness of betrayal and blindness, now she shone under the light of renewed possibility. Inevitably, this scene also awakened deep remorse. Amanda realized that her conquest of Jonathan had not been worth it, and Jonathan understood that he had lost a woman who, despite everything, had always loved him unconditionally. In another part of the city, completely oblivious to Amanda and Jonathan's reactions, Claire and Richard were celebrating the new phase. He had assumed the director's chair that morning, receiving congratulations from the employees. After the interview on the news, he returned home, where Claire was waiting, arranging some flowers on the small balcony. Richard, how was the reception at the company? I imagine everyone is happy for you to take over definitively. She smiled, adjusting a petal that had fallen from an arrangement. It was great. There's a lot to do, but I'm excited. And seeing people recognizing our effort, our story, moved me. He approached, hugging her. I still feel, I don't know, like I'm dreaming. A short time ago, everything seemed lost. Now I can see your face, walk without fear, and even build a future by your side. She gently ran her hand over his face, confirming that this moment was real. Through this union, Claire had found not only a partner but also the opportunity to heal from the wounds left by Jonathan and Amanda's betrayal. The vision treatment had worked, and even if the doctors called it a miracle or an unlikely result, she understood that the true miracle lay in the support she had received and the courage to start over. In contrast, Jonathan and Amanda were drowning in a sea of frustrations. Nothing remained of the dream they had secretly nurtured, as the complicity they believed they had was swallowed by daily fights, accusations, and the lack of any concrete perspective. There, in front of the screen, they realized that Claire was already far removed from all that suffering and that, alongside Richard, she was rebuilding her life in a way they could never have imagined. The final scene in the news report showed Claire and Richard leaving the ceremony venue under arches of flowers, smiling at the guests while white petals fell slowly. The narrator explained that the couple had known each other since youth, but that true love had only blossomed after they faced many obstacles. It was spoken of as a moving story of overcoming, where the protagonist had been challenged by betrayals and physical limitations, and yet had discovered within herself the necessary strength to rise and find happiness. "Starting over can hurt, but it's liberating," she had told one of the reporters shortly before leaving the field of flowers. At the end of the segment, Jonathan's expression was one of complete emptiness, and Amanda just stared at the floor, biting her lips in a mixture of envy and regret. They knew that chapter was definitively closed. Claire had not only recovered her sight but had acquired a much broader way of seeing, full of self-love and hope for a better future. The radiant smile she displayed on television spoke for itself. She was no longer the fragile woman they had abandoned. She had rebuilt her own story alongside someone who truly loved and respected her. That image echoed a powerful message. Even after so much pain and disappointment, Claire had discovered not only the light for her eyes but the hope for a full and loving life.